It was an ordinary morning in the city, the kind where people hurried along the streets with coffee in hand, trying to beat the clock. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a golden glow on the tall buildings and turning the streets into a lively canvas of movement and sound. Among the crowd, a young woman moved with purpose, her mind focused on the tasks of the day ahead. She had a notebook tucked under her arm, filled with sketches and ideas she had been working on for weeks. She was an artist at heart, always noticing the small details others overlooked. In the same city, a young man was walking to work, his pace steady but thoughtful. He was known for his sharp mind and quick problem-solving at his job. Yet he often felt that something was missing from his life. Despite the comfort of routine, he longed for something deeper, a connection that went beyond the ordinary rhythm of daily life. On that particular morning, he was carrying a book. One he had been reading for a long time but never seemed to finish. A story of hope and change that resonated with him more than he realized. The coffee shop on the corner was a small, cozy place with the scent of freshly brewed coffee lingering in the air. It had become a refuge for people seeking a moment of calm before the chaos of the day. That morning, it was particularly busy, with the soft hum of conversation blending with the clinking of cups and the low music playing in the background. The young woman entered, scanning the room for a quiet corner where she could sit and jot down her thoughts. The man was already there, seated by the window, engrossed in his book. Occasionally glancing out at the bustling street, their eyes met briefly as she walked past him. A fleeting moment that neither thought much of at the time. She chose a table not too far from where he sat, pulling out her notebook and a pen, ready to capture the world around her. He returned to his book, but he couldn't help noticing the way she seemed to absorb everything around her, the way she observed the people, the way she smiled softly at something only she could see. There was something magnetic about her presence, something that made him want to look up more often than he should. As she sipped her coffee, she noticed him too, not staring, but in that subtle way where you can sense someone noticing you without it being obvious. He had a calm demeanor, a quiet confidence, and a kind of warmth that drew her in. She tried to focus on her sketches, but her thoughts kept drifting toward the man by the window. There was a sense of familiarity, as if she had seen him somewhere before. Though she knew she hadn't, it was a strange feeling, one that made her heart beat a little faster. Minutes passed, and the ordinary morning began to feel extraordinary. A small accident at a nearby tabula, spilled coffee, caused a brief commotion. The young woman instinctively reached out to help, and the man moved quickly to assist as well. Their hands brushed while reaching for the same napkin, and they both laughed at the coincidence. It was a simple, unplanned moment, yet it carried a spark. A tiny connection that neither could ignore. They introduced themselves, exchanging names and a few polite words. The conversation started awkwardly, as most do, with small talk about the weather, the city, and the coffee shop. But soon, the awkwardness faded, replaced by genuine curiosity. They shared stories of their mornings, their routines, and little details about their lives that would normally be left unsaid to strangers. The more they talked, the more they discovered common ground: a love for art, an interest in literature, and a shared appreciation for the small joys in life. Time seemed to move differently in that coffee shop. The noise of the city faded into the background, replaced by the soft rhythm of their conversation. They laughed at similar jokes, nodded in understanding at each other's observations, and found themselves lingering in words and gestures that felt natural and unforced. There was an ease between them, a sense of comfort that surprised them both. It was as if they had known each other far longer than a few minutes. Eventually, he realized that hours had passed without notice. The morning rush was over, and the coffee shop had quieted down. There was a moment of hesitation, a pause where neither wanted to end the connection so suddenly. They exchanged numbers, not as a formality, but as a genuine desire to continue the conversation and see where this unexpected meeting could lead. The simple act of exchanging numbers felt significant. A small but meaningful step in a journey neither could have anticipated. As they left the coffee shop, each went their separate way, carrying with them the memory of the encounter. The young woman walked along the familiar streets, her notebook under her arm, yet her thoughts were far from her sketches. She replayed the moments in her mind, the laughter, the shared stories, the warmth in his eyes. There was a sense of wonder, a feeling that something rare and beautiful had begun without either of them fully realizing it. The young man walked in the opposite direction, the book still in his hand, but now forgotten. He thought about her smile, the way she seemed to notice the world so fully, the way she made a simple morning feel magical. He felt a mix of excitement and curiosity, emotions that had been dormant for a long time. There was a sense of anticipation, a hope that this meeting was not just a fleeting moment, but the start of something meaningful. The city continued around them, unaware of the subtle shift in their lives. People hurried past, cars honked in the distance, and the streets buzzed with energy. Yet in the midst of the ordinary, two lives had intersected in a way that would forever change them. That morning, what began as a routine visit to a coffee shop became the first chapter of a story neither could have written, but both would cherish. Days followed, and the memory of that encounter lingered. They found themselves thinking about each other at unexpected moments, smiling at the thought of shared jokes, and feeling a quiet anticipation for the next time they would meet. Life continued with its usual pace, yet something had shifted in their hearts. There was a newfound sense of possibility, a hope that love could appear in the most ordinary of places. In the simplest of moments, the story of their connection was not dramatic or sudden. It was gentle, natural, and profoundly human. It was in the small gestures, the shared napkin, the casual conversation, the way they looked at each other with curiosity and warmth. It was in the understanding that even strangers could touch each other's lives in meaningful ways, leaving impressions that linger long after the moment has passed. By the end of that first day, both felt an unspoken agreement that this was just the beginning. Neither knew what the future held, but both understood that they had found something rarer, a spark, a connection, a possibility of love that was unforgettable even before it had fully begun. And so, with hearts quietly full of hope and minds alive with curiosity, they stepped into their separate worlds, carrying with them the promise of a story that would unfold in ways neither could have imagined, a story that would become the most unforgettable love they had ever known. After their first unexpected meeting at the coffee shop, both of them went back to their routines, but neither could forget the encounter. Every morning, she walked past the places they had spoken about, imagining what it would be like if he was there, sharing a laugh or pointing out something unusual in the city streets. He, on the other hand, found himself glancing at the little cafes and bookstores he often passed, wondering if she might appear again, as if by chance. It was the subtle pull of curiosity and connection, the gentle beginning of something more than friendship. They began to communicate, first through brief text messages, sharing small thoughts and observations about life. She sent him a photo of an unusual flower she had seen in a park, and he replied with a story about a street musician he had heard the day before. Their messages were light but meaningful, each one carrying a piece of their personality, their humor, and their growing understanding of one another. They laughed over silly jokes, discussed the books they loved, and slowly started sharing dreams that they had never told anyone else. As days turned into weeks, they decided to meet again. This time, it was not by accident, but by choice. They met at a quiet park in the city, a place where the trees swayed gently in the wind and sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting playful shadows on the ground. There was an ease in the way they greeted each other, comfort that only comes from two people who have already formed a quiet bond. They walked along the pathways, talking about their mornings, their work, and the small details of life that often go unnoticed. There was a sense of peace in simply being together. It's a feeling that they were exactly where they were meant to be. Over time, their meetings became regular. Sometimes they would visit art galleries. Sometimes they would wander through the streets, observing the everyday scenes that often go unnoticed. They shared their favorite cafes, introduced each other to the music and books they loved, and slowly learned about each other's worlds. Every moment felt natural, like pieces of a puzzle fitting together. They did not rush. They did not force anything. Their connection grew quietly, steadily, and deeply. One afternoon, as they sat on a bench overlooking a small pond, they shared stories from their pasts. She spoke about her childhood, about the dreams she had once held, and the challenges she had faced. He listened intently, offering encouragement and understanding, and in return, he shared his own experiences, his hopes and fears. There was no judgment, only acceptance and genuine interest. It was a rare kind of conversation, one that made both feel seen and heard in ways that few people had ever achieved. They laughed at the silly mistakes they had made in the past and comforted each other over the moments that had been hard. In those quiet moments, they realized how much they valued the connection they had found. As their friendship deepened, so did their feelings. Small gestures began to carry more meaning. A gentle touch on the hand, a shared glance that lingered a second longer, a quiet smile exchanged over a book or a cup of coffee. These small, unspoken signs were filled with emotion, growing stronger with each encounter. They were learning to understand each other without words, to recognize the subtle ways love can make itself known. And yet there was no rush. Only the natural unfolding of a bond that felt increasingly rare and precious. There were moments of doubt, of course. Each of them had experienced disappointment before, and the fear of losing something before it truly began lingered in the background. But those fears were tempered by the trust and understanding that had begun to form between them. They spoke openly about their feelings, about their hopes and concerns, and each conversation brought them closer. They learned that love was not just about grand gestures, but about patience, respect, and shared growth. One evening, they attended a small art exhibition together. The gallery was quiet, filled with soft lighting and the gentle hum of conversation. They moved from painting to painting, sharing thoughts, impressions, and the emotions each piece evoked. At one point, they found themselves standing before a painting of a sunset, the colors blending in a way that seemed to capture the beauty of fleeting moments. They both fell silent, absorbing the scene, and in that silence, there was a profound sense of connection. Words were unnecessary. They understood each other in the quiet. In the shared appreciation of beauty and meaning, their bond continued to grow as they explored the city and shared their lives. They celebrated small victories together, comforted each other in moments of disappointment, and encouraged each other to pursue dreams and passions. It was a love that was gentle, supportive, and deeply human. They did not need grand declarations or dramatic gestures. The love was in the consistency, the thoughtfulness, and the simple act of showing up for each other. As weeks turned into months, their connection became undeniable. Friends began to notice the change in them, the way their faces lit up when they spoke, the way their laughter seemed to linger a little longer when they were together. They themselves began to realize that what they shared was more than friendship, that it was a love built on understanding, respect, and a shared appreciation for life's beauty. They did not rush to define it, but allowed it to grow naturally, cherishing every moment, every shared experience. One rainy afternoon, they found themselves caught in a sudden downpour. Instead of seeking shelter, they laughed and ran through the streets, letting the rain soak them and the city wash over them. In that playful moment, there was a sense of freedom, a release of all worries, and a pure joy that only comes from being completely present with someone who truly understands you. They held hands, laughed at their soaked clothes, and shared a quiet, unspoken acknowledgement that their connection had grown into something rare and beautiful. Throughout this time, they continued to learn about each other, discovering quirks, habits, and passions that made each more fascinating. They shared meals, late-night conversations, and quiet moments of reflection. Every experience became a thread in the tapestry of their growing bond, weaving together a story of connection, care, and deepening love. They found comfort in each other's presence, a sense of home that was not tied to a place, but to a person. In this way, their relationship evolved. It's built on trust, laughter, and shared experiences. They faced the ordinary challenges of life together, supporting each other through long work days, family obligations, and personal doubts. They celebrated small joys, like discovering a hidden cafe or watching the sunrise together, and found meaning in the simplest of moments. Their love was quiet but profound, a steady flame that grew brighter with each day. By the end of this part of their story, both of them knew that something extraordinary was unfolding. It was not a love marked by sudden drama or sweeping gestures, but by consistency, presence, and deep understanding. It was a love that gave them both courage, hope, and a renewed sense of what life could offer. And as they continued their journey together, they carried the quiet joy of knowing that their connection, once accidental and unexpected, had grown into something unforgettable, something that would shape the rest of their lives in ways they had never imagined. As the months went by, their bond grew stronger, yet life began to present challenges neither of them had anticipated. The young woman received news that her art exhibition, something she had worked toward for years, was scheduled in a city far away. It was a dream opportunity, yet it meant she would be leaving for weeks. Away from the man who had become so important to her. She felt torn, excitement mixed with anxiety. How would their connection endure the distance? Would the bond they had built so carefully be tested too soon? Meanwhile, he faced pressures of his own. At work, he was assigned to a major project that demanded long hours and his full attention. The project was crucial for his career, and the responsibility weighed heavily on him. He wanted to be supportive, to cheer her on in her pursuit. But he also feared the growing distance would weaken the connection that had become his anchor in daily life. Both felt the strain of their separate obligations. Yet neither wanted to let the other go. Before her departure, they spent a quiet evening together. Walking along the city streets lit by the soft glow of street lamps, they spoke openly about their fears and hopes. Their conversations tinged with the bittersweet awareness that time and distance could challenge even the strongest bonds. They held hands, feeling the comfort of closeness, and promised to support each other no matter what. There was a vulnerability in that moment, a raw honesty that deepened their trust and commitment. The first days of separation were difficult. Text messages and phone calls became their lifeline. She would send photos of her art preparations, sketches, and glimpses of the city she was in. He would reply with encouragement, sharing small moments from his day. Details that would normally seem insignificant, but now felt essential. Every message carried emotion, a silent reassurance that distance could not erase what they felt for each other. Yet the ache of longing was unavoidable. And both felt the weight of missing someone they had grown to depend on emotionally. During this time, misunderstandings began to creep in, small but persistent. A missed message, a delayed reply, or an accidental omission led to moments of doubt and worry. She wondered if he was truly understanding her world, while he questioned if she was feeling overwhelmed and pulling away. They had not experienced such challenges before, and the uncertainty introduced tension into their communication. Despite their deep connection, they realized that love also required patience, clear communication, and effort, especially when circumstances tested their closeness. One rainy evening, a long phone conversation revealed the depth of their feelings. They talked for hours, sharing frustrations, fears, and hopes. It was an exhausting but honest conversation where neither held back. By the end, there was a sense of relief, an understanding that the distance, while challenging, had not weakened the bond, but instead highlighted its importance. They promised to be more mindful of each other's feelings, to communicate openly, and to never let miscommunication cloud their trust. This conversation became a turning point, reminding them that love is not just about moments together, but also about navigating difficulties with honesty and care. As she immersed herself in preparing for her exhibition, he found solace in small reminders of her presence. He carried a small sketch she had drawn for him, a symbol of her thoughtfulness, and looked at it whenever he missed her. Likewise, she kept a note he had written, tucking it in her bag for comfort during long days. These simple acts reinforced their connection, showing that even apart, they remained an integral part of each other's lives. During this period, they also learned to appreciate the growth that came with challenges. She discovered new perspectives in her art, inspired by the new city, its streets, and the people she encountered. He developed patience and resilience, learning to balance work pressures with the emotional needs of someone he deeply cared about. The separation, though difficult, became a lesson in trust, understanding, and the power of emotional support. One evening, She attended a private viewing of her exhibition, feeling a mixture of pride and nervousness. The gallery was filled with visitors admiring her work, and she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Yet, amid the applause and admiration, her thoughts wandered to him. She imagined how he would have celebrated her achievements, how his words of encouragement would have made her smile. In that moment, she realized that success felt incomplete without sharing it with the person who had become so central to her life. Meanwhile, he faced a critical presentation at work, a project that could change the course of his career. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also drew strength from the thought of her support, even from afar. He visualized her smile, her belief in his abilities, and it gave him courage. He realized that love could be a source of strength, a force that motivated him to face challenges he might otherwise have feared. As the weeks passed, they began planning a reunion. The anticipation of seeing each other again brought excitement, nervousness, and joy. They exchanged ideas about how they would spend their first day together, yet there was also an understanding that the simple act of being in each other's presence would be enough. It was not about grand gestures, but about reconnecting, about finding comfort in the familiar warmth of someone who truly understood them. The day finally arrived. She returned to the city, her heart racing with anticipation. He waited at their favorite coffee shop, the place where their story had begun. When she walked in, there was a moment of hesitation, a breathless pause, and then a flood of relief and joy. They embraced, feeling the tension of weeks apart melt away in the simple act of being together again. Words seemed unnecessary. Connection, the understanding, and the shared emotions were enough. Over the next few days, they took time to rediscover each other. They walked the streets they had explored together before, revisited favorite cafes, and shared long conversations about their experiences during the separation. There was laughter, tears, and a deep sense of gratitude for having weathered the challenges and emerged stronger. The separation had tested their bond, but it had also proven its resilience. Showing that true connection could endure obstacles and distance, in the quiet moments they reflected on how far they had come. They realized that love was not just about joy and excitement, but also about patience, compromise, and enduring uncertainty. They had grown individually and together, learning that a meaningful relationship requires effort, understanding, and unwavering support. The trials they faced became stories they would recount with a sense of pride, knowing that their connection had deepened through adversity. As life returned to a rhythm that allowed them to be together more regularly, they continued to nurture their relationship with care and attention. Each moment shared became more precious, each conversation more meaningful. They appreciated the small joys like cooking together, sharing music, or simply sitting in silence, enjoying the comfort of presence. The bond that had started with a chance meeting had grown into a profound connection, one strengthened by challenges, trust, and genuine care. By the end of this chapter of their story, they knew that love was more than emotion. It was commitment, understanding, and the courage to face challenges together. The trials of distance and miscommunication had taught them the importance of honesty, patience, and support. And as they looked at each other, smiling with quiet satisfaction, they understood that what they shared was rare, beautiful, and enduring. Their love had been tested and had proven strong, a foundation for the unforgettable journey that lay ahead. After reuniting, their relationship entered a new phase. The weeks apart had strengthened their connection, and now they were determined to make the most of their time together. Every moment was cherished. From quiet mornings, sharing breakfast, to long walks through familiar streets, to evenings spent talking about dreams and hopes. They were learning more about each other than ever before, discovering not only shared joys but also the subtleties of character that made each person unique. One afternoon, they decided to visit a small village outside the city. It was a spontaneous decision, driven by a desire to escape the hustle and bustle of urban life and spend uninterrupted time together. The village was quiet, with narrow streets, lined with old houses and gardens filled with colorful flowers. They walked hand in hand, exploring little shops and stopping to admire handmade crafts. The day was filled with laughter and playful teasing, yet also with moments of quiet reflection. In this calm setting, they felt more connected than ever, as though the world had slowed down just for them. During their trip, they encountered situations that tested their patience and understanding. A misunderstanding with a local shopkeeper led to a brief argument, and they found themselves disagreeing over small matters. But instead of letting frustration take over, they listened to each other, communicated openly, and found compromise. These minor challenges became opportunities to strengthen their bond, reminding them that love was not about perfection, but about navigating life's ups and downs together. Back in the city, they continued to explore deeper layers of their connection. They shared stories of their past, including moments they had never told anyone else. She spoke about her fears of failure and moments of insecurity, while he revealed struggles with self-doubt and the pressure to meet expectations. Listening to each other's vulnerabilities created a profound trust and intimacy. They realized that love was not only about joy, but also about supporting each other. Through fears and uncertainties, one evening they decided to revisit the coffee shop where they first met. It was a place that held memories, a symbol of the beginning of their journey together. As they sat at the same table, they recalled their first meeting, laughing at how awkward and yet magical it had felt. They talked about how much had changed since that day and how much they had grown individually and as a pair. There was a sense of gratitude, an acknowledgement that life had brought them together in ways that were both surprising and beautiful. During this time, they also faced external pressures. Friends and family had opinions about their relationship, some supportive and others questioning. They had to navigate these expectations while remaining true to each other. There were moments of doubt and tension, but each challenge became an opportunity to reinforce their commitment. They learned to listen to each other, to provide reassurance, and to prioritize their shared connection over outside noise. This period tested their strength, but also showed the depth of their love and understanding. Their love continued to evolve through simple acts of care and thoughtfulness. He would surprise her with flowers or small gifts that reflected her interests, while she would cook meals and create small artistic tokens to express her feelings. These gestures, though small, carried deep meaning. They were evidence that love is not only expressed through grand declarations, but through consistent thoughtfulness and attentiveness to the other's happiness. One memorable day, they decided to spend time volunteering at a local community project. Working together to help others provided a new dimension to their relationship. They discovered the joy of collaboration, the shared satisfaction of making a positive impact, and the pleasure of seeing each other's compassion in action. It was another layer of connection, showing them that love can be expressed not only in private moments, but also through shared values and actions. As their relationship matured, they began to envision a future together, talked about dreams, aspirations, and the kind of life they hoped to build. These conversations were filled with hope, but also with realism. They discussed challenges, finances, work, and personal goals, understanding that a lasting relationship required both emotion and practical planning. This process brought them closer, as they realized that they were not only emotionally compatible, but also aligned in their approach to life. They also explored creative projects together. Inspired by her art and his storytelling, they began to collaborate on a small collection of illustrated stories. Each contribution reflected their unique perspectives, yet together the work became something richer than the sum of its parts. Working side by side, they learned to respect each other's creativity, compromise when needed, and celebrate achievements together. It was a tangible expression of their connection, a testament to how love can inspire growth and collaboration. Despite the joy and closeness, they faced moments of insecurity. Both had experienced past disappointments, and sometimes doubts would creep in about whether their relationship could endure long-term challenges. But these moments were met with open conversations and reassurance. They discovered that love requires courage, honesty, and vulnerability. By addressing their insecurities together, they strengthened the trust between them. As the seasons changed, so did their understanding of each other. They observed each other's reactions to stress, moments of happiness, and quiet contemplation. They learned to anticipate needs, offer comfort without being asked, and celebrate successes with genuine joy. These subtle, consistent actions deepened their connection, proving that love is not just a feeling, but a practice, a way of being present for another person in every circumstance. They also made time for reflection. During quiet evenings, they would sit together, sometimes in silence, sometimes in conversation, discussing not only their relationship, but their personal growth. They reflected on challenges faced and lessons learned, expressing gratitude for the shared journey. These moments of mindfulness reinforced their bond and allowed them to approach the future with clarity and mutual understanding. One late evening, walking through a city park filled with twinkling lights, they paused to watch the stars emerge in the night sky. It was a simple moment, yet profoundly moving. They held hands, feeling the depth of their connection, and spoke quietly about how fortunate they felt to have found each other. The calm of the night, the soft glow of lights, and the gentle presence of one another created a sense of peace and contentment. It was a reminder that love is often found in quiet, shared moments rather than dramatic declarations. Their relationship, now steady and deeply rooted, became an example of how love can grow gradually, patiently, and authentically. Each day was an opportunity to reinforce commitment, express care, and discover new aspects of each other. They realized that a lasting bond requires not only emotion, but also attention, respect, and consistent effort. By the end of this chapter in their story, they felt a renewed sense of purpose in their relationship. The trials they had faced and the joys they had shared had created a connection that was resilient, authentic, and deeply fulfilling. They understood that love is a journey, not a destination, and that each day together offered new opportunities to grow closer and support each other. And as they walked hand in hand through the city streets, they knew that their story, built on trust, understanding, and shared experiences, was moving toward something unforgettable, something that would last a lifetime. Time moved forward, and their relationship had grown into something rare and profound. What had started as a chance encounter at a coffee shop had evolved into a bond built on trust, patience, and countless shared experiences. They had faced challenges, distance, misunderstandings, and personal insecurities. Yet each obstacle had strengthened their connection rather than weakened it. Now, they were ready to take the next steps in their journey together, not out of necessity, but out of the natural evolution of love. One weekend, they decided to spend a few days in a quiet countryside retreat. The idea was to disconnect from the noise of the city, to focus on being fully present with each other, and to enjoy the simplicity of nature. The retreat was surrounded by rolling hills, with a river winding gently through the landscape. They arrived early in the morning, greeted by the fresh scent of the earth and the soft hum of birdsong. It was a peaceful setting, perfect for reflection, conversation, and simply enjoying each other's presence. During their stay, they took long walks along the river, collecting small stones and flowers, laughing as they skipped stones across the water. The simplicity of these moments brought a deep sense of joy and connection. They spoke about their dreams for the future, the kind of life they envisioned together, and the ways they wanted to support each other's passions. These conversations were filled with hope and clarity, reinforcing the understanding that their love was not fleeting, but rooted in genuine care and mutual respect. One afternoon, they stumbled upon an old abandoned barn at the edge of a field. Curiosity led them inside, and they found themselves exploring its worn wooden beams and sunlit corners. They imagined the stories the barn could tell, inventing tales of people who might have once visited or lived there. They laughed at the absurdity and beauty of their imaginations, enjoying the freedom of playfulness that came from complete comfort with each other. Moments like this reminded them that love thrives not only in deep conversation, but also in laughter, creativity, and shared spontaneity. Evenings at the retreat were spent in quiet reflection. They would sit on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange, pink, and purple. During these times, they did not feel the need to fill every moment with words. Sitting in silence, holding hands, and observing the world around them was enough. It was a comforting presence, a reminder that love does not always require grand gestures. Sometimes it is the simple act of being together, fully present, that matters most throughout their time together. They also faced small disagreements, as naturally happens in any relationship. Perhaps it was a difference in opinion about which trail to explore or what meal to prepare. But instead of letting these moments create tension, they used them as opportunities to practice patience and understanding. They learned that compromise does not diminish love, but rather strengthens it. Each resolution, however minor, is a step toward deeper harmony and mutual respect. During one of their walks, they discovered a small hidden garden behind an old house. It was overgrown, wild, and beautiful in its imperfection. They spent hours exploring, imagining what it could look like with a bit of care and attention. It became a metaphor for their relationship. Love requires effort, attention, and care, but the results are natural beauty that cannot be forced. They talked about nurturing their bond, about supporting each other's growth, and about creating a shared life that honored their individual dreams while building a life together as the retreat came to an end. They reflected on the lessons they had learned. Love is not just about passion or romance. It is about trust, patience, communication, and shared experiences. It is about celebrating the ordinary moments, navigating the challenges, and growing together through life's ups and downs. They realized that their relationship had matured, not by avoiding difficulties, but by facing them together with honesty and empathy. Back in the city, they carried the peace and clarity from the countryside into their everyday lives. They continued to support each other's ambitions, celebrate each other's successes, and provide comfort during difficult times. They made time for small joys, quiet breakfasts, evening walks, shared music, and spontaneous adventures. Their love had become a source of stability and joy, something that nurtured both their hearts and minds. One day, they decided to create a personal tradition, a monthly day dedicated solely to celebrating each other. On these days, they would explore new parts of the city, try new experiences, or simply spend the day at home reflecting on their journey. It was a way to remind themselves of the importance of nurturing their relationship, of appreciating the bond they had built, and of intentionally creating moments of connection. These days became cherished rituals, reinforcing the depth and resilience of their love. They also began to think about the future more concretely. Conversations about long-term goals, living arrangements, and shared responsibilities were no longer daunting but exciting. They approached each topic with openness, considering each other's perspectives and desires. Through these discussions, they learned that love is as much about planning and responsibility as it is about emotion, and that a healthy relationship balances both aspects. Despite the challenges they had faced and the responsibilities of everyday life, their love continued to grow stronger. Each day brought new insights into each other's personalities, new ways to support and encourage, and new moments of joy. They found comfort in the predictability of their routines, yet excitement in the unexpected discoveries they made together. Their connection was both stable and dynamic, a rare combination that enriched their lives in countless ways. As time went on, they became more than partners. They became true companions, each finding in the other a source of inspiration, strength, and joy. They celebrated milestones together, supported each other through setbacks, and created countless memories that would last a lifetime. Their relationship was not defined by drama or extravagance, but by consistency, thoughtfulness, and a shared commitment to growth and happiness. One quiet evening, they revisited the coffee shop where it all began. Sitting at the same table, they reflected on their journey, laughing at the awkwardness of their first encounter and marveling at how far they had come. There was a sense of completeness, a feeling that what they shared had been building toward. This moment, a recognition that their love was not only special, but enduring. They realized that their story was one of patience, courage, and deep human connection, a testament to the power of love that grows naturally over time. In these final moments of reflection, they understood that love is a journey rather than a destination. It is built through shared experiences, mutual understanding, patience, and unwavering support. Their relationship had weathered challenges, celebrated joys, and nurtured growth, and it had done so with authenticity and care. The bond they had formed was resilient, beautiful, unforgettable. As they stepped out into the evening streets, hand in hand, there was a sense of peace and anticipation. They had faced obstacles, learned lessons, and grown individually and together. The city lights shimmered around them, a reflection of the life they had built and the journey that lay ahead. They knew that whatever challenges might come in the future, they would face them together with trust, love, and a commitment that had been forged through time and experience. Their story, once begun by chance, had transformed into a love that was profound, enduring, and unforgettable. It was a love built on everyday moments, honest communication, shared dreams, and the courage to navigate life's uncertainties together. And as they walked forward, side by side, they carried with them the knowledge that their love was not only a beautiful chapter of their lives, but a foundation for all the chapters yet to come. A testament to the most unforgettable love story of all time. After the milestones they had reached together, life continued to present both familiar routines and unexpected challenges. Their love had become steady and deeply rooted, but they realized that every relationship evolves over time, requiring constant attention, understanding, and adaptation. They were no longer just discovering each other, they were actively creating a life together, balancing personal growth with shared goals, and learning the delicate art of living as a team. One morning, as the city slowly woke up, they sat together on a small balcony overlooking the street. She held her notebook filled with sketches and ideas, and he had his laptop, working on a project he had been passionate about for months. Even in these ordinary moments, there was an extraordinary comfort in each other's presence. They shared a cup of coffee, exchanging thoughts about the day ahead, laughing over minor mishaps, and making plans that seemed simple yet meaningful. It was in these everyday rituals that their love grew stronger, rooted in consistency, shared joy, and mutual respect. They began exploring new hobbies together, discovering that their combined energy could turn ordinary activities into adventures. One weekend, they decided to take a pottery class. The experience was both challenging and fun. They laughed as their hands became covered in clay, trying to shape their creations while teasing each other about the inevitable mistakes. Beyond the laughter, these moments taught patience and teamwork. Each success, each imperfect pot, became a symbol of the journey they were on, messy at times, yet beautiful because it was shared. Their bond was also strengthened by acts of kindness and support during difficult times. One day she received news that a family member was unwell. The worry and stress weighed heavily on her, yet he was there every step of the way, offering comfort, helping with practical matters, and listening without judgment. She realized that love was not only in the joyful moments, but also in being a steady presence when life becomes challenging. Likewise, he experienced setbacks in his professional life, and she was his unwavering support, offering encouragement, perspective, and faith in his abilities. They learned that enduring love is often measured by the ability to be present for each other when life tests resilience. As they continued to grow together, they made a conscious effort to maintain open communication. They discovered that sharing thoughts and emotions, even uncomfortable ones, prevented misunderstandings and fostered trust. They would take long walks in the evenings, talking about their dreams, fears, and aspirations. Sometimes these conversations were light and playful, other times deep and reflective, but each one reinforced their understanding and connection. They realized that love thrives when two people feel safe being completely themselves. Their relationship was also filled with small surprises and gestures that kept the spark alive. He would leave little notes tucked into her notebook, expressing his admiration and love in simple words. She would occasionally prepare his favorite breakfast or create a small drawing inspired by a shared memory. These acts, though small, were powerful reminders of thoughtfulness, attention, and affection. They learned that love is expressed most effectively through consistency and care rather than grandiosity. They also spent time volunteering together. At a local charity, sharing experiences that extended their love into service for others. Working side by side, they discovered a shared sense of purpose and fulfillment. They saw each other's compassion and empathy in action, deepening their appreciation for one another. These experiences highlighted the importance of shared values in a relationship, showing that love can grow even stronger when it contributes to the well-being of others. As months passed, they encountered moments of tension, natural in any long-term relationship. Disagreements about future plans, minor misunderstandings, and the pressures of daily life tested their patience. Yet, instead of letting conflict divide them, they approached each challenge with empathy and openness. They learned to listen without interrupting, to speak without blaming, and to compromise without resentment. Each resolved disagreement became a building block for a stronger, more resilient bond. One special day, they decided to revisit the countryside where they had once spent a weekend retreat. The familiar landscapes brought back memories of laughter, reflection, and shared discovery. They walked along the river, collected wildflowers, and spoke about the journey that had brought them to this point. Reflecting on their shared history, they realized how much they had grown both individually and together. The past had shaped them, the challenges had strengthened them. The love they shared had become a foundation for their future. During this visit, they also began planning a creative project together. Drawing inspiration from their experiences, they decided to combine her art and his writing into a collaborative book. The process was both exciting and challenging. They brainstormed ideas, shared drafts, gave constructive feedback, and celebrated each small achievement along the way. This project became a symbol of their partnership, a tangible creation born from collaboration, trust, and shared passion. Amid all these shared moments, they continued to make room for personal growth. She explored new artistic techniques and attended workshops to expand her skills. He pursued professional development, attending seminars and connecting with mentors to enhance his expertise. Supporting each other's individuality became a cornerstone of their relationship. They discovered that love does not limit growth. Instead, it nurtures it, allowing each person to flourish while maintaining a strong, shared connection. They also made an effort to nurture their social bonds, spending time with close friends and family. By involving loved ones in their lives, they enriched their relationship with a broader sense of community. Celebrations, shared meals, and simple gatherings created joy, laughter, and support beyond their immediate partnership. These connections reinforce the idea that love thrives not only in the intimacy of two hearts, but also within the larger network of shared life experiences. One rainy afternoon, they stayed home, sitting by a window and listening to the soft patter of rain. They talked about their favorite memories, their hopes for the future, and the ways they had grown together. She shared how the small moments, quiet breakfasts, laughter over sketches, long walks, had become the most meaningful parts of her life. He reflected on how her presence had brought calm, inspiration, and purpose into his daily existence. The conversation was filled with gratitude, acknowledgement, and reaffirmation of their commitment to each other as time went on. Their love matured into a rhythm of deep understanding and quiet joy. They no longer measured the strength of their bond by dramatic gestures, but by the consistency of care, support, and shared experiences. They celebrated accomplishments, comforted each other in disappointment, and approached challenges as a united team. The ordinary moments, shared coffee, evening walks, laughter, and quiet reflection became extraordinary because they were experienced together. They also learned the importance of forgiveness and patience. Mistakes and misunderstandings were inevitable, but addressing them openly and kindly allowed them to grow stronger. Each resolved conflict reinforced the trust between them, proving that love is not about perfection, but about commitment, empathy, and resilience. They discovered that the most enduring relationships are those where both people are willing to learn, adapt, and support each other unconditionally. Their journey continued to be filled with exploration, creativity, and shared joy. From spontaneous trips to quiet evenings at home, they balanced adventure with comfort, excitement with stability. They created rituals that brought meaning to everyday life, such as monthly celebrations of their relationship, shared creative projects, and simple acts of thoughtfulness. These practices reinforced their connection and reminded them that love is nurtured through intention, presence, and consistent effort. As they reflected on their journey, they realized that their love had grown into something timeless and unforgettable. What had started as a chance meeting had evolved into a profound partnership, built on mutual respect, shared experiences, patience, and unwavering support. They had faced challenges, celebrated successes, and grown both individually and together. Their bond was resilient, filled with understanding, and rooted in a deep appreciation for each other's unique qualities. They understood that the true essence of love lies not in grand gestures or fleeting passion, but in the steady presence, the consistent care, and the shared journey of life. Each day offered new opportunities to grow closer, to support each other, and to create memories that would last a lifetime. They embraced both the ordinary and extraordinary moments, knowing that each contributed to the richness of their shared story. And as they walked hand in hand through the familiar streets of the city, hearts full of gratitude and anticipation for the future, they knew that their love was not only enduring, but evolving, a living testament to patience, trust, and unwavering connection. Their story, once begun by chance, had become a lifelong journey, a celebration of the most unforgettable love that two people could experience together, and a reminder that true love grows, flourishes, and deepens through the shared experiences of everyday life.